Welcome to Headed True North, the podcast for families who want more than a curriculum, who want an education with a difference. Each week, we sit down for honest, hopeful conversations about raising and educating the next generation, rooted in truth, goodness, and beauty, and pointed always towards Christ. At True North, learning happens in live, dynamic classes with real teachers who know your student by name. And on this podcast, we bring the same heart straight to you. So wherever you are in the journey, pull up a chair, let's set our course, and head true north. Hello and welcome. Thanks for listening to the Headed True North podcast. Today, we're going to be touching on a topic that is all over the news. That is AI and AI data centers. Now, you might be wondering, what does True North Academy have to say about AI data centers? Well, we're going to join two of our science teachers from the science department, Grande and Sunny Hummel, and they are going to give a science teacher perspective. And don't be surprised if you find a little hope in this conversation. Stay tuned.
Hi, everyone. Today I am here with Sunny Hummel, and I am Melissa Grande, and we are from the science department at True North Academy. And we're going to talk about an area that is passionate to both of us today, and that is AI data centers. This is such a hot topic in the news, and the title of our podcast today is going to be The Hidden Cost of AI. And we are going to walk you through all the things you need to know about AI data centers and why you should care about if they are being built in your backyard or not. And we're going to explain first what an AI data center is. Most people kind of know what it is, but we're going to explain to you what exactly it is and the process that happens when you enter something into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever sort of AI function that you use, what happens behind the scenes there, and why it's going to require so much energy from the electrical grid, and why it's requiring the use of so much water. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about those things. And we're also going to touch on, is there any benefit environmentally to AI data centers? Is there a benefit at all? So we're going to start out today by explaining to you a little bit about what an AI data center is, and how it differs from a traditional data center. Because I think that's the biggest thing. Like, let's define our terms so we are clear in what we're talking about here. With that. So do you want to get us started with that, Sunny?
Sure, yes. So let's see, defining terms. An AI data center specifically is specifically built for specialized functions regarding like AI learning props, and then the results that you get from that. Instead of CPUs used for like a regular traditional data center, that's the AI data centers actually use something called GPUs. And GPUs, they stand for the graphics processing unit, which is a specialized electronic circuit that's designed specifically for images and video. So when I think that, well, I covered, there we go. The data center, that's a data center. And there's the difference between, you have your traditional data centers with your regular CPU function. So that would be like your emailing, the typical browsing on the internet that's not AI generated, versus the AI data centers, which specifically function for AI type prompts through, you have your ChatGPT, your Claude, Grok. My goodness, those are the three main ones. I know there's a couple others.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many. I feel like every other day, you're seeing an app that has is a new AI specific app, and we're also seeing that AI is built into so many other computer software that we use on a daily basis. Like even as a
Yeah.
teacher now, it's built into Google, it's built
Yeah.
into Canva, it's built into even like spell check functions now.
Yeah.
And I know as teachers at True North, we're seeing this because it becomes kind of a gray area as to what is appropriate use of AI in the classroom. That's a whole other discussion.
That is a whole nother
We're not
discussion.
going to get into that today,
Yeah, and
but just
it's
as a
built
point of
into,
reference.
yeah, I was going to say it's built into just your typical like you said, your Google searching, right? Let's Google it, right? And typically the first thing that pops up is that AI generated prompt. So that's not your normal, hey, I'm going to this website sort of CPU browsing. That's using those GPUs at those AI data centers. Same thing with like Safari and DuckDuckGo and all those other browsers that have that function
Yeah, and
that you can turn off.
I think people think that it's just regular part of their internet usage, so it's not going through a data center. I think most people actually say to themselves, "Well, I don't do the kind of searching that would go through an AI data center, so I'm not the problem."
Right. That's
I'm not
true.
the problem,
It's true.
right? But you can almost not help it. It's literally built into every single app on your phone. It's built into most apps that we use and most types of software that we use nowadays. It is literally the future is here. So regardless of whether you think you're the problem or not with AI usage, you are using it.
Yeah. We're
So
all
you're
using
using it.
it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whether you think you are or not, it's like electricity, everyone uses electricity. It's the same kind of thing. So I guess most people really want to know, like, what exactly happens when you're typing in that prompt on Google. This is a good point to get into that. Okay. So you're going on Google and you're typing up any sort of prompt. It can be directions. It could be, how do I change a flat tire? It could be, how do I spell or pronounce this word? And like literally anything that's simple, you get that automatic like AI mode right when you generate that prompt. What is happening behind the scenes when we do that? So maybe we should talk a little bit about that. Um, and I thought I knew, and just even researching for this
Mhm.
podcast today, I found out a little bit more. Like I know some basics, but I'm definitely not like an uber, like I didn't study computer science in college or
Same.
anything. That's
Yep.
not my area.
No.
So I knew, but I didn't know. So this was very eye-opening to like hallmark those steps. And so the first step, which most people really realize is, and it's called tokenization, is when you put in your text and it breaks it down into a smaller chunk of numbers. I think anyone that was born post 1970, kind of realizes that text turns to numbers when
Mhm.
it comes to computer systems. But what does it do with those numbers? That's kind of like the sort of gray area that I think many people probably don't understand. So that's step one. It turns it to numbers, tokenization. And then step two is called vectorization. No, not like Vector in Despicable Me. I'm Vector. Okay. Pop culture reference there. Vectorization is what happens when it takes those numeric representations that are actually called vectors and then it groups them together. So that's step two. Step three is the processing phase, and that's when you really have some of the heavy analyzing happening. So it analyzes all those numeric vectors that were once words that are now numbers, and it kind of groups them together really similarly to help determine and understand the full context of your request, which is amazing, right? Like
Mhm.
everyone was doing like
Absolutely.
those funny graphics that come out sometimes, right? Like put in AI prompt,
Yep.
generate me as a dog or whatever. And then it creates an image of you based off of a picture of you as a dog or whatever it is. They had that one at Christmas time and I don't know, they have them all the time. And to do that, it kind of groups together all of those similarities that it knows about you from the prompt or from the prompt to
Mhm.
create exactly that. So it kind of puts them into categories, which as a geek, I love. I'm a categorizer.
Categorizer.
Categorizing
Yep.
stuff is my jam. I get you, AI. Okay. So that is like where a lot of the heavy lifting happens. And then also in the next phase, which is called generalization, it's more of that heavy lifting where it actually calculates the likelihood of every possible like next word in that prompt. And then it sort of selects the best one. This I could definitely see, and all of you probably definitely see, if you're typing in a text response to a friend in any sort of messenger service, right? Your
Mhm.
phone is now automatically providing you with the next word that it will think that you will use. So that's a really good example of this generalization process, where it's happening instantaneously as you're typing it. It's telling
Yeah,
you what it thinks you're going to type next.
amazing.
So that's insane to me. So it picks that best one, and then it basically keeps looping and looping around until it like finalizes its product for you. So those are the two stages with the heavy lifting. Then it translates it back to text from the numbers. And it runs it through like a final like safety filter, quality guidelines, ethical guidelines, all those things, and make sure that it's something that it can essentially spit out to you as a product. And so that is a lot of behind the scenes work
Mm,
that is happening.
yeah.
And this is all happening instantaneously. Think about how fast that happens on your phone when you're like typing in those prompts. Or
Billions of calculations per second.
yes, or even when you're typing something in Google, right? We get a little mad when we see that little yellow, like that little circle on the screen spin and spin and spin. You know, if it needs a couple seconds as human beings, we become so accustomed to that instantaneous
Instant. Yep.
that we get frustrated if we have like a little lag, right?
Hmm.
Um, so that is like a lot of behind the scenes work that's happening in those AI data centers. And obviously, that is all of that work is going to generate what? Lots of energy generates
Lots and
science
lots of
teachers.
energy. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Like quite literally billions of calculations happening per second for each prompt that's put into AI. So the amount of energy that you need from that is it's it's like unfathomable, I guess you can say, because if everybody in the world, let's just say 50% of the world is typing something into an AI prompt, imagine all the energy that you just need to just do that, like, hey, like, give me the directions to go to this coffee shop. Um,
Yes.
that right there is going to require amounts of energy. So then the question is, like, where does this energy come from? Like, where does all the electricity come from that's used in these data centers? And about, what was it, 40% come from like a natural gas
Mhm.
source,
Yep.
right? 24% is renewable, so that will be your solar and your wind energy. 20% is nuclear energy, and 15% is coal, comes from coal powered power plants. So it's definitely a mix of your traditional electric grids, but there's also some, like, I guess, some on site power generation that's happening. I know that's not happening in every single one, but that would be a interesting component to add to where these data centers are going into for them to generate
And
their
I
own
think that's
electricity.
like a lot of the bills and the laws that they're trying to come out with are trying to I know here in Pennsylvania where you are, that's a big thing that they're trying to make happen. Our governor, Josh Shapiro, is really trying to make them be accountable for providing their own power plants. And here in Pennsylvania, we have a lot of like warehouses, tons of warehouses. We still
Mhm.
thankfully have a lot of open space. And so a lot of the big companies bring their companies here for various purposes. And we tend to have large areas where this is the case, even pretty close to us in like the Lehigh Valley and in Western Berks County. And so we are at a location where there are several proposed data centers going to be built relatively close to where you and I live.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a big thing that they're trying to make sure of, is that they're providing their own power. They're supplying their own power. And as we mentioned a few minutes ago, I think it would be cool if there was a way that we could make this cyclical. And I'm sure there's someone a lot smarter than me who's found a way to make that happen, where they can produce their own power and then generate it and cycle it back into more production. That would be amazing. So
That would be absolutely amazing.
yeah, if it could be kind of
Um,
self-sustaining. And I'm sure that's in the works, and some genius somewhere is trying to figure that out for sure. But that would be really cool if that was something that was
mhm.
able to be done. So every time someone puts in one of those prompts we just talked about, um, it's creating more of that demand, which is why there's a lot of push to create more data centers, and in certain areas like in Pennsylvania, there's a lot of room for that to happen. So there's a lot of talk about it. And I know in the Southwest, this is also a big concern in the Southwest
Mhm.
as well, especially due to certain conditions that they have there. They're drier and things like that. So if we keep creating these data centers and we keep adding AI functions to every app, and it starts becoming more immersive, right? Even in electronics in our home, like refrigerators, there's smart refrigerators now. I don't know if they have AI built into them yet. They probably do if they're attached to an app on your phone, but like
Well, yeah, you can
your
scan in the
thermostat.
barcode.
Yeah,
And
okay, exactly. The barcode. So for sure, your refrigerator, your thermostat, like any sort of smart functions at your home, as this expands, is going to create more of a demand. So, like, what are some of the implications of that? I think is
well,
what we're talking about. What people want to know, what could
yeah.
happen if this continues? Like, what's the worst case scenarios?
Well, I mean, two big things is the grid strain, the electric grid strain, which sometimes we even in hot summers, especially here in Pennsylvania, we have
Oh,
that
yes.
problem where everybody's using their air conditioners and stuff like that, and then the power grid does black out every once in a while. At least where I'm at, it
Yes.
does.
Oh, yes.
And then you have your rising energy costs for us as residents.
Yes.
If you pay for electricity in this region, it's probably more than doubled at this point since 2023, and eventually that's going to become unsustainable for us as consumers, as everyday consumers. It's going to be completely unsustainable.
Right.
Um,
Which is why it's
so
important that they have their own power plants too, because then the
yes,
cost is not directly passed on to the consumer, at least optimally.
yeah. I mean, and yeah, ideally that would
We'll pay for
be
everything in the roundabout, but
yes. Ideally, that would be the best thing.
yeah.
So those are the two, like I guess, directly related to us that we can see and we can feel because we like air conditioning and we like having more money in our pockets.
Yeah.
But then you have things such as like water scarcity that I know has become a really hot topic as these data centers are, these proposed data centers are popping up because water usage is a real thing with
Yeah.
data centers, which we can get into then. But then we also have the cognitive decline
Yeah.
of data usage or the AI usage.
Yeah, and destruction of biomes.
Yep.
I know I have a picture of literally a week ago of a deer in my backyard, and I completely live in the suburbs, directly outside of the city, 2 blocks away from us to the west. We are right in the heart of the city of Reading, and so to have a deer in our backyard, like, yes, a mile up the road, we have tons of farms and things like that, but
Mhm.
it is very rare to see those sorts of animals in our neighborhood. And I have a doe in my backyard, and she had to have jumped my fence. And she was eating some of the flowers in my yard. They must have been really yummy. But then also a couple days later, we were on a walk and we saw her with 2 fawns on our street too. So we're seeing more of the animals driven from these, free open areas into more suburban areas and even into the city because they have no place to go now. So, and
Mhm.
we don't even have farmland that far from us either that they can choose from. So they would not even have to go very far to get there. But you're seeing them even come from those areas because you have these sorts of types of industry now popping up and more of these AI data centers. We know that they're loud. We know that they are disruptive, even in some passive ways, to like air pollution and noise pollution and things like that. And so the animals, of course, don't want to be there. So now they're being driven into, these suburban areas too. So there's lots of consequences.
The- And a deer is a relatively benign animal, but
Yes,
imagine more in some areas where you start having the black bears and stuff come in, which we already have sort of, I'm going to say issue. It's not, I don't know. I
there
like
was one in
black
like
bears, but
Boyertown not that long ago.
right.
Like,
So
yeah,
it is kind of an issue because they can become dangerous
yeah,
to be around, especially once they start getting used to people. So when
yeah,
you have your ecosystem being disrupted and then relocated where the people are, and then the
yeah,
people are like, well, I don't want this in my suburban neighborhood, it creates a whole new problem.
yes.
So it's definitely this like chain reaction that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the biggest concern that I've heard about environmental factors with AI data centers is water.
Hmm.
And they use a massive, massive amount of water in order to cool their systems, which operates essentially like a power plant. So if you're familiar with how nuclear power plants do their cooling systems, it is very, very similar to that process. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about those two loop systems that you were explaining?
Yes. So there's with how data centers use water, there's two main systems. There's something called an open loop system, which is um, considered evaporative cooling. So the warm water is absorbed from or the warm water absorbs the heat from the server. So we know that GPUs and CPUs create a massive amount of heat. So they have to be cooled so that they can function properly. So that water has to absorb the heat. And then it's pumped into an outdoor cooling tower, very similar to how a nuclear power plant has their own cooling towers there. And then the water trickles down, and the fans blow outside air across it, creating the water to evaporate and eventually cool. So it's kind of like, sweat cools you off
Yes.
when, because it's evaporating off of your skin. Um, and most data centers use an open loop system. And then you have a closed loop system where the water is pumped in to sealed pipes and coils inside the facility. And that's why it's called a closed system, because it doesn't come in contact with the servers at all. It stays within the pipe. And while it's going through those coils, it absorbs the heat from the servers via a heat exchanger. And then it goes back out into the environment. There, they do have to cool the water then before it is, whether or not it's put back into the surface water or put back into the groundwater, it does need to be cooled off because you can't put hot water back into the ground without any um, environmental impacts
Right,
happening
right.
with.
That's just going to create more. Yeah.
Yes. So those are the main two types. But then you know, I guess this would be like a part two conversation if we would discuss just the environmental impacts of that water usage. And we would have to get into that at another
Yes,
time.
we're gonna
Yes.
have a part two. We're gonna have a part two. But
Yes.
for the average person, like what you can kind of equate this to is like, any type of computer that you use is gonna generate that heat, right? Energy produces
Yes.
heat. And so like, when you're using your laptop or your phone or whatever, and you've been using it too much, we're all guilty.
Yes.
It starts to heat up and the fan might kick on, especially if you have an older model laptop or computer that has that really big fan that'll spin. But even in the newer models, it's got that little bar. It starts to cool itself. And that's really important because heat is going to degrade performance of computer systems. It can lead to hardware failure, and both types of those processing units, the CPUs and the GPUs, they're going to automatically lower output and speed to prevent meltdown. It's just an automatic feature that's built in. So without that cooling process that's happening, not only could it cause malfunction, but it can also slow the rate down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a secondary problem because, back to us getting frustrated with that time lapse of sometimes having to wait a little bit. If a lot of people are using it at once, it's not getting cool enough. Then we have that longer amount of time that we have to wait to get those results that we want to. And, as human beings, we don't like waiting for things. So then that becomes a problem. Not only the meltdown, but also the optimization of just the processing and
Yep.
things like that. So that's why that's necessary. So we always want to have a balanced approach
That's absolutely
when
right.
we're talking, right? Okay, so like we talked about like all the scary things or some of the scary things. And we already gave you some definitions about AI data centers and what they are and how they work. And we talked to you about some potential problems that can occur. But does AI actually have an environmental positive? Like what are some ways that it can help the environment? And you are teaching a class this summer called Math for Science.
Yeah,
And in Math for Science, it is a lot of essentially data science.
it
There's a lot
is.
of like data science
Yep.
built into the course, which is amazing. And it kind of you do more of like the mental aspect of it. You don't use AI in that class very
Nope.
often, if at all. But a lot of like the optimizing of data science is done through the use of AI now. So we're talking about things like NOAA for meteorology and tracking the weather. Doppler radar has AI and everything built in now. So a lot of important resources for tracking the weather and tracking air quality, tracking different species of animals, all of those things use AI now as tools, even agriculture.
Even accurate. Yep. AI is really good at seeing patterns
Yeah.
in data that maybe us humans may miss,
Yes.
um, or they can at least see it a lot quicker than we can, which kind of helps that environmental aspect. Because if there is a pattern to be seen, let's say with, earthquake data, certain earthquakes are happening in this area, they may see a pattern like, hey, we need to watch, you need to watch, not we, because AI can't watch, but
Mhm.
you need to watch this, volcano, because these earthquakes, this pressure, everything is showing that this volcano may, go any minute, right?
Yeah.
So
Tsunamis, even.
tsunamis,
Yep.
predictions. So things are becoming quicker with that. And so that's a really positive thing, especially if you
Yes.
live in a tsunami zone. I know they just had one
They did.
uh,
That's why I thought of it. Yes.
in Alaska.
Who follows Noah on the just for fun? Okay, the
No,
science teachers at True
not
North.
me, right? I don't get the emails that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
So like even, yeah, Tornado Alley, the folks that live in Tornado Alley, like the whole movie Twister was based off that, right? Trying to find ways to predict
yeah.
those types of natural disasters faster so that more
Hmm.
lives can be saved. So there is definitely a lot of pros as well. A
Yes.
lot of pros as well. So balancing that, how do we do that? Well, we are going to have a part two to this conversation where we are weighing the cost and the benefit of that as well. And I think that's where we're gonna probably leave it today. Did we miss anything, Sunny, that you can think of?
I
I
don't
think
think so. I think we touched on all the basics. We explained what
yes.
data centers are and the differences between them and the energy they consume. and some potential problems, but also potential benefits as well. So I think we touched on the basics there.
Hopefully this has been informative to those of you that are listening in, and now you understand AI data centers a little bit better. We are going to come back with another podcast a little bit later this summer with a part 2 that's going to talk about some of the ethical concerns and some of the deeper environmental concerns of AI data centers. So anyway, Sunny is teaching some classes this fall, and so am I as well. You can find both of those classes by visiting the True North Academy website. You can type in either of our names, Sunshyne Hummel or Melissa Grande, in the search bar, and it will generate a list of classes that we are teaching. So if you are interested in learning more about these topics, Sunny teaches chemistry, I teach environmental science. You can definitely dive more into this with the students in your classroom by taking some of our classes this fall. So we hope to see you over at the website. Thanks for listening in. Have a great day.
Great. Thank you.